Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here, wham, John Sneisen, and some good news for once. The governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, has signed into law a bill, HB 2014, which removes all state income tax on precious metal coins. The measure was passed in the Arizona Senate on May 10th by a margin of 16 to 13. When people buy gold or silver to protect themselves against the devaluation of America's paper currency, they frequently end up with a gain when exchanging the metal back into dollars. However, this is not necessarily a gain. Regarding purchasing power, this gain is often nominal because of the slow but steady devaluation of the dollar. The government nevertheless assesses it as a gain for tax purposes, which of course you can imagine why. Taxation is theft, people. The bill, called House Bill 2014, as I mentioned, was introduced by Republican Mark Fincham, who insisted that taxing exchanges of legal tender like gold coins is a tax on money, which of course we could also make the argument that things like inflation are as well. The very creation of money, quote unquote money, or currency as we should call it, is in a form a tax. It pushes individuals into debt. But this is also helpful to the cause of taking down the monopoly of the Federal Reserve cartel, at least in Arizona. And Ron Paul spoke in favor of this bill and went to committee meetings, which really helped drive this home. Of course, the governor of Arizona had vetoed very similar bills in the past, and it's good to see this pass forward. I'm going to leave it to John, though, for most of the rest of this report due to the fact I'm very sick. It hurts to talk, so we'll leave it to you, John. Can you break down what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, what is happening here is that they're taking away the so-called capital gains tax now. There's no real gain there. 99% of all the gain is inflation.
Of course.
And that is what increases the value of gold. Now, of course, they're talking about a minuscule amount that, the daily exchanges up and down because there is supply and demand, whatever that is, moves the price a little bit. Now, what's interesting with this is, of course, that this treatment makes gold money. It tells us that gold is money, and that's something new. I don't know if the Federal Reserve really likes this bill.
Well, I was going to ask, what do you think the Federal Reserve is thinking regarding this? This really a move forward.
Well, I think guys like Paul Volcker has said, gold is money off radar when he's taken off the mic, let's say that, and all these people, they understand the historical value of gold.
Well, even Alan Greenspan, the man who says we at the Fed are above the law, even Alan Greenspan many years ago, back in the 60s and 70s, I do believe, as Ron Paul noted in his book In the Fed, was actually very much in favor of sound money. However, a lot of these people, let's face it, they're not just stupid. They are evil. They know what they're doing. They're pushing people into debt servitude. But go on, John.
Well, yeah, the reason why gold is money is because it's such a malleable metal and it never really corrodes. That's the main reason why gold is a very valuable medium of exchange for human beings. And it's, of course, been a massive store of value because it doesn't disappear. And all the money, all the gold that's been dug up is still here. It hasn't disappeared.
Well, it's only created out of supernovas, so the scarcity continues to rise, bringing the price up, and especially when the dollar devalues, obviously the price is going to go up. And it's important to mention that historically gold has always been sound, preserved value for thousands of years. Every crash we see, gold has been able to keep people insured as the crash affects them dramatically and negatively, of course. And it won't be any different this time around. Now, it's important to mention, as we've talked about many times here at WHAM, gold obviously today and silver is very manipulated. It's a fake bear market when it's actually a bull market, but it's been manipulated into oblivion. Of course, this is often due to the amount of ETFs out there, but the paper promissories and etc. on gold, but at the same time, like Deutsche Bank, HSBC, BNP Paribas, Scotiabank, all these other banks were caught red-handed manipulating the price. But don't be too afraid, because when the banking system goes down, which will happen when the dollar goes down, then these chains will break and gold and silver will still take off. It's an incredible insurance on wealth.
Well, the reason why gold and silver will take off is, of course, the value of the current fiat currencies will collapse completely. Or it would be new currencies implemented by these corrupt governments, of course. They have plans to, maybe put in the gold standard. And when they do a gold standard, what they do is they take the supply of gold that you hold, and then they divide the price of the supply of gold versus the M0, the M1, the M2, whatever they printed money out of thin air. Yeah. And today, of course, it would be an insane high value. I will have to do a video later on where we actually go into these numbers. I've done it before, where I actually calculated what the price and value of gold would be, and even if they did a fractional backing of gold like they did back in the old days before they when they went off the gold standard, they basically had fractional parts, like let's say 10% backing of all the paper money. So it wasn't all backed by physical metal. It was just X amount. And of course it failed because they printed more and more debt, and it completely collapsed. Now, one thing that's very important to also talk about here in Arizona is a Senate bill called 1096. And what it says in the Senate bill, it talks about to making gold and silver legal tender. Now, what it goes on to talk about what legal tender is, it's a specie coin issued at any time by the United States government, except the numismatic coins with a fair market value that is at least 15% greater than the value of the metal it contains. Any other specie that a court of contempt jurisdiction rules by a final and appealable order to be within the scope of state authority to make a legal tender. So what they are proposing here, and this was put forward in 2014, is making gold and silver legal tender. So you actually can go and buy stuff with it in stores and everywhere.
This also kind of bugs me too, though, John, because as we've kind of talked about before, I've always believed in competing currencies, free markets, letting businesses decide what they'll take or give or whatever. I mean, that's up to individuals, a fair exchange of goods for services. And I find legal tender laws really annoying. They are part of the enslavement complex, and it's better that gold and silver can be legal tender than fiat, but it's still enforced, and I really think that it should come down to the individuals accepting what they want for what they're giving. And I also want to point out that these I'll just call them punks at Gold Money have been making a lot of false statements about me lately on Twitter, and one of those statements, they claimed that I'm somehow for a centralized gold standard, which of course, if anyone watches our videos, they know that that is absolutely untrue, because as we go into competing currencies, free markets, free monetary system, and when it comes down to a gold standard, what we're going to see with things like a gold standard, as we've seen before, is they print more paper than they have gold, and then there's a run on the bank, and there's not enough gold to pay the masses who've put their gold into the bank. And of course, when you put your money in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's, and etc., etc., etc. And it's really annoying to see these kinds of falsities going around in the gold arena, the gold community. And I think it should be called out, and I'll go further into it at a later time. Of course, Gold Money is threatening legal action to some extent due to our report on George Soros and his investments in Gold Money. And I say to that, well, George Soros can sue me then. Just speak for yourselves. I provide the facts. They're absolutely factual and they are sound, and I can back up everything that I've said in that video, and everything that I didn't say was fact but theory, I leave that up to the viewer to decide. But that is all, legal speak, and I provide all factual information. So let's just get that, off the table for a second so we can explain that. And, it's just so important because gold is truly sound money. Gold is insurance on wealth, and gold will provide an insurance from the inevitable crash, because all fiat currency eventually reverts to its intrinsic value of zero. Always has, always will. This time won't be any different. And it's just they're creating this currency out of thin air. Debt, devaluation, inflation, this derivative market. They push people down, like I often say, they push people down a hole of debt. They fall down this hole of debt. and they can only ask for a ladder up from the state and the banking system, and that is servitude. So it's really important to talk about how important the freedom argument is when we're talking about gold and silver. We're not trying to sell IRAs or whatever. We're not trying to sell different deals with different banks. We aren't affiliated with anyone. We're not affiliated with any banking partner. We're not affiliated with any gold company. We are just individuals who believe in freedom and want people to be educated about the message of individual liberty and sound money, not to mention self-responsibility, which you can't have liberty without responsibility. So I just think it's important to point that all out. My mind's not really there today because I'm incredibly sick, but John, if you will take my place for a second, just talk a bit more about how important gold and silver is.
Well, gold is, of course, and silver is historically very, 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 very important. In the fact that it always have fought back. It's been a constant battle since 1024 when they invented paper money, the Chinese, the Sung Empire.
Almost 1,000 years.
It's been a constant move forth and back between either coinage in copper form or in other metal forms versus the paper. And there's been they started with backing the paper currency with some form of coinage, either be gold and silver or copper coins, whatever it was. And then over time, of course, they start to issue credit. That's where the problem comes in. And that's where you get the rise of the middle class. And we got to understand this. We talk about that we need to take care of the middle class and have the middle class. The problem is with a lot of currencies and so on, when you issue credit and you give it to the banks, the problem is that what you really have is still rich and poor. The middle class has only borrowed their way into feeling richer because that money is not really there. And over time, as more and more of the middle people get into the middle class, there's going to be less and less money to be able to pay that back over time. So it collapses back in on itself. And that's what we're seeing right now with the middle class. It's the whole credit expansion first. It happened in China in the 1000th century. And then, of course, it came back again as there were way too much debt. There was no more innovation or production to create more value in order to be able to create more money and so on. So what happened is all it collapsed in on itself. And then, of course, they went just to create more fiat currencies in there was three different more currencies in China. And then they went back with the Ming Dynasty. They actually went back to gold and silver as money again. And it's been a constant cycle. This moved to Europe, of course, and from Europe it went forth and back between gold and silver for a while. All that you got to understand about this gold and silver is that you have always the competition of the government wants to have control over the legal tender, no matter what. So what they try to do is they try to either have gold or fiat, right? And what happens is you either have gold and it moves over to fiat through a transition period. The problem is the one side, the fiat people, says that there's never enough gold to expand the monetary supply, so you need to go off that gold standard. And then the gold people say, you can't expand, we want to limit the supply of currency. And then they say, what are you going to do? You're going to have a depression on your hand because you can't borrow money out of thin air to people. So it's a constant fight, forth and back. But what we've seen in these transitions period when fiat becomes worthless and people are running for the doors to find anything to save, whatever they saved up in wealth, from their hard work over time, they are running back to commodities and especially to gold over history. So it's just a historical fact, guys, that gold is money.
And there's been a slight change of the guard, I suppose you could say, in recent years with cryptocurrency decentralizing, of course. And that's all good. Diversify, as many would say, and that's just in my opinion. But it's truly something that people should do and get away from fiat currency and the centralized grid. Yeah,
that's the thing. You got to get away from the control of them. And you get that with actually holding the physical metal in your hands and having, of course, being self-sustainable and not dependable on the state. And then, of course, having things like decentralized cryptocurrencies that goes up in value because people are flooding to it because they're afraid of market crashes they're afraid of, fiat currency collapse, and so on. So it's another safe haven that has come out of thin air, basically. Since 2008, the crash there in 2009, it was created, and since then this whole blockchain cryptocurrency empire has just blown up to massive proportions. Now we're at thousands of different cryptocurrencies, and of course Bitcoin has a little bit of a euphoria right now. I think we're going to see people take, of course, people are looking at it as an investment. They don't understand even that you should use Bitcoin as a way of, getting out of the system and moving money around. They just look at it, oh, it's an investment. It's like a stock going up. What you got to look at Bitcoin is you can use it for using it for all your transactions. So it's a way of getting out of this fiat currency that's constantly losing value every single day. It's losing value, and it's just getting to an insane level, and that's why you're seeing more and more people are waking up and wanting to jump on this Bitcoin train. And I think over time people will get a little bit more educated on what blockchain currencies are all about. And I think a lot of our of course Jeff Berwick and others know very well what
Stephen
it is
Kendall.
all about. And Stephen Kendall, they know very well what this is all about in the future. The problem is we got to stop these guys from centralizing it again.
Absolutely.
That's all they're trying to do. They try to centralize the power and have these ETFs in silver and gold, and then they're trying to Vanguard is coming out with funds now that are most Ethereum and Bitcoin. So they want to have that power. They don't like that you have your individual
I don't know why
control.
people keep falling for that derivatives market. It's ridiculous. But just finishing it off, and first I'll just point out, because a lot of people will mention, Bitcoin is to the coming crypto bubble burst what Amazon and Google was to the .com bubble burst. I don't believe that, because there will be a bubble burst in the crypto market, but I don't believe that Bitcoin is just going to crash and never recover, because it's going to be much like Google and Amazon, a little bit down, way up,
Yeah, well, what's going to happen, and we've seen it with Bitcoin, it goes way up and then it collapses down again, but it finds a new floor because there's more people that have started to use Bitcoin than it was before the bubble, right?
Yeah.
So you have constantly more people adapting Bitcoin and using Bitcoin. That's why you're going to see the next bubble. It's probably going to be pretty, a little bit bad, I think. Anyways, but the next time it goes up again, it will go past the next high again, and then it will drop down to above the last level. So it will always keep on working itself up through more the market cap, which is X amount of people that have actually bought, taken their US dollars, moved into the cryptocurrency. That's how the cryptocurrency gets its value.
It's very untrekked ground, so I truly hope we're right, because we are kind of going into territory that we haven't before, and it's hard to completely diagnose the issue to the extent that we would like to, and as we are able to historically, of course, with gold and silver. And just as we're going to get a comment every single time we do a video on this subject, we always get a comment, you can't eat gold. And I'll just close up the video by saying that no, you can't eat gold. It's important to be self-sustainable. You need food, water, shelter. You need the ability to survive. You need the ability to defend yourself, or else you're just gathering things for the toughest guy in the block. But when it comes down to sound money, unless you plan on hunting all day, every day, which most people in the city won't be able to do, or harvest crops every day, which is not possible, then you're going to want to be able to buy food and water for your family and yourself without having to put people at gunpoint and steal it or kill people for it. That's just a basic fact, and that's why sound money comes in handy in a crash.
It's survive and thrive. The gold and silver is thrive part.
Absolutely. So until next time, check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube. Also, check our address for Bitcoin in the description and the comments, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And also check our link to the Red Pill Expo, which takes place June 23rd to 24th in Bozeman, Montana, where you could see people like Robert Kiyosaki, J. Edward Griffin, Richard Gage, Jeff Berwick, Ty Bollinger, Mike Adams, Joel Salatin, Cynthia McKinney, and the list goes on and on and on. It's an extensive list. It keeps growing all the time. Check the website, redpillexpo.org. You could see the link below. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
Be the change.